everyone. My name is Prasidha Menon and I'm the Vice President and Global Head of Communications for OYO Hotels and Homes. And today I'm here with all of you to talk to you about the magic of crisis communications. I truly believe that every crisis is an opportunity for a brand or an organization to fix a problem that they did not even know existed. It is also an opportunity to understand and identify an action which could have negatively impacted one or more of your stakeholder groups and which has the potential to tarnish your brand's reputation in the long run. While an issue, if not handled appropriately, can spiral into a crisis and can have a huge impact on the organization's reputation capital. Let's think about some of the common reasons why such issues happen in the first place. Very often, one of the reasons why such issues or crises happen is because of people working in silos. One department takes a decision, the other department is not even aware or prepared, and here you go. Other common factors are, short-term objective-driven thinking and planning, where you completely ignore the long-term impact of a certain decision, or sometimes you take a decision keeping in mind one particular stakeholder group and completely forget the impact it can have on another. Some stakeholders who are affected, maybe not directly impacted, can still cause a huge problem for you, especially in times like this when social media is on everybody's fingertips. Another common factor that results in a situation going completely out of hand is the inability of a brand to preempt, prepare, and scenario plan. And last but not the least, the lack of agility while responding to a situation, mind you, responding and not reacting, is another factor which to a great extent determines the quality of the response, the relevance of the response, and the timeliness of the response as well. Let me begin with an example of a situation that I have dealt with in my past. I was working for this very interesting consumer product brand, and they were launching their new series of product, and they decided to appoint a brand ambassador as well to create a little more hype and excitement in the Indian market. So we were all excited. We were working on a multimedia, multi-stakeholder communications campaign. We were spending hours with the marketing team trying to work on the branding, identifying the right spots for the advertisements, figuring the social media amplification strategy, and also the strategy to get the internal audiences, that is the employees, excited about this big new development. While we were doing all of this, there was another development. The company globally decided to announce a restructuring. Restructuring meant cost cutting, it meant people actions, and a whole lot of changes which were going to impact the India market as well. Now look at the situation. On one side, we were bringing in a brand ambassador, spending tons of money, and on the other side, a ton of employees were going to be impacted. Soon, this whole conversation went up into the internal social media channels of the company, eventually moved to the external social media platforms, and soon became media headlines. Quick enough, other countries saw this. The other countries also started creating noise about this whole development. As you can imagine, the situation spiraled, and there was a need for a comprehensive response strategy, keeping in mind every impacted individual as well as those affected by this development. This brings me to a very important aspect of handling a crisis or an issue. In an era where 280 characters can completely change the fate of a company, it is extremely important for us, PR and communications professionals, to take the onus and be the voice of reason for the organization. As brand custodians, PR and communications professionals have an inherent feeling when they know that the brand has done something right or wrong. As people responsible for bringing the entire team together and managing a situation like this, here are my quick tips and suggestions. Firstly, extremely important to spend some time and do your due diligence. Spend time on fact check. Ensure you have complete understanding of all aspects of the situation and the impact it has had on various stakeholders and audience segments. Once you have all of that in place, you will be able to devise a very compelling and extremely factual yet logical and empathetic response to the situation. More often than not, we have a tendency to issue an apology or put out a holding statement where you completely take responsibility for the entire situation and make these assurances and tall claims about how you will ensure it never happens again. I personally feel that this is definitely not the right way to go about things. The first response, in my opinion, is the most important response, and it completely decides the tone of reporting or the tone of narrative and conversation that is going to happen about the incident in times to come. So take your time and create a very compelling response which you think will resonate with most of your audience segments. Remember, this is your first and your most important opportunity to set the narrative right. Another interesting aspect to take in mind is, apology in itself means nothing. In today's world, it is extremely important that an apology precedes appropriate corrective action. And remember, if you make a promise to fix something and correct something, make sure you go back to your stakeholders and ensure that you're working on a plan where you try and understand the root cause of what happened and work on a procedure to fix it systemically for the future. Let me give you a quick example. This incident happened a couple of years back and involved a reputed airline brand. It was all over social media with a ton of questions still left unanswered. It was reported that a passenger was ill-treated by the crew members and forcefully asked to deplane. The situation went out of control with a ton of videos and footage which was floating around everywhere. Initially, people thought that the plane was overbooked, and that was one of the reasons why the passenger was asked to deboard. Eventually, again, on social media and through articles, it was reported that the crew members needed a seat for themselves, and that's why the passenger was forcefully asked to deplane. While this news spread like wildfire, the company decided to come out and issue a statement. The CEO, as the leading voice of the brand, issued an apology for having had to re-accommodate passengers. This response made the situation even worse. This is a classic example of the first response gone wrong and an apology completely losing its effectiveness. Let me also give you another example of how a brand handled a crisis effectively and used the opportunity to make a statement which people were not going to forget so soon. I'm talking about none other than Starbucks. Two men who were having coffee in one of their stores were forcefully asked to vacate the store premises by one of the staff members who reported them to the police. And eventually it was revealed that this was a clear case of racial discrimination. But Starbucks decided to take a stand. The company shut down more than 8,000 stores across the United States so that they could take the staff through a racial bias training. This gesture completely changed the perception of the company. An incident happened which was completely beyond the company's control. However, the company decided to not just issue an apology, but make sure that they are taking corrective action, even if it meant business losses. This was hugely appreciated by all the Starbucks loyalists around the world and still remains one of the case studies for all crisis comms professionals. To conclude, my biggest takeaway from some of these case studies, as well as the ton of incidents that I have managed in my career, it is that innate ability in all of us to spot an opportunity in the toughest of situations by simply thinking logically while leading with empathy. If you do this right, you will be able to truly help a brand or a company come out of a crisis and rebuild the trust and confidence of its stakeholders. Like they say, it takes ages to build a reputation, but it only takes one mistake to ruin it forever. So use the seat you have at the leadership table to remind your colleagues focused on business outcomes that the business of business is not just business. And there is something beyond just legal responsibility. It is our moral responsibility as a brand and as a good corporate citizen to do what is right. I truly hope you enjoyed the session. I also hope that you don't have to deal with a lot of issues in crisis, but if and when you do, my learnings are of help to you. I want to thank Reputation today and everybody involved for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to share my learnings and experiences with all of you. Thank you so much for making me a part of Spectra.